Which players are the breakout candidates for the 2023 Boston Red Sox?
You are Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I want to welcome you back into the Locked On Red Sox podcast. Thank you so much for making Locked On Red Sox your first listen of every single day. I'm your host, Jake Ignaszewski, and today I am joined by a very special guest by the name of Coop Leonard. He is a producer at Odyssey, does work with Baseball Isn't Boring and also Odyssey as well. So him and I go into the breakout candidates for the Red Sox going into the 2023 season. And this is part one of our conversation. So let's get into the episode. We are here with a very special guest, Coop Leonard. So how we doing, Coop?
Oh, we're chilling. We're doing just fine, Iggy. What's good?
Doing good, man. 10 days away or 9 days away from when we're going to be dropping this of opening day happening for the Sox. How you feeling about the team going into the season?
Oh boy, that's a loaded question. I will say, if we're going to be positive, we're feeling a whole lot better than we were at the winter meetings.
Yeah.
How's that? Or even at the town hall. I'll even go further.
Yeah.
So about like
definitely.
a month away, things have changed that dramatically. Would you say dramatically, or just like
I would say the vibes
gradually?
are much higher.
Okay. I'm with you on that. Maybe it's the warm air for the guys down there, or maybe it's actually just getting to watch the product on the field and kind of realize that Heim Bloom is getting paid good money for a reason. But yeah, it's definitely a weird juxtaposition of where we were.
I mean, I think as well, like you get to sort of get more answers of the questions that you had of some of the guys. Like, I mean, Alfaro is one that comes to mind, even, now that, Whitlock Bayo is back and everything like that, like you're starting to sort of like check off those boxes in your mind of like sort of the questions that you had going into spring training, I guess.
And I think maybe, and that's to tease what we're going to be talking about. I think that is kind of like the big issue of what was this offseason. There were so many question marks around guys.
Right.
And it wasn't a matter of, are these guys, is this team bad? It's more of a question of, is this team able to cobble together like a 500 like game season?
Right.
Or not 500, but 500 win season. So it's definitely, once you finally get to see ball, it's always a good feeling. So I think that's also part of it, is you're finally getting to hear the hit of like snap of the bat, snap of the glove, crack of the bat. What onomatopoeias are we using?
Well, I think as well, you get to also see how, the veteran aspect plays into it as well. I mean, you sort of looked at the ages of the guys that the Sox were signing. You were like, oh, how is this really going to jive? How is this really going to, help the team? And I think, it's more of like the veteran aspect, mentoring some of these younger guys who are coming up and try and make an impact. And, one word that, I said a few episodes ago that I think really resonates, with a lot of the players, on this team, and sort of, correlates with the topic that we're going to be speaking about, some of the biggest breakout candidates for this Red Sox team is, pressure. There's a lot of pressure on not only the team, and Heim Bloom, Alex Cora, but also a lot of these players as well.
Do you think there's that much pressure on Alex?
So.
Yeah, well, it's tough because I tried to push that whole headline week that he had out my brain.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I feel like he's not as on the hot seat as Heim Bloom. Like I think
completely agree. Yeah.
I think if the Red Sox have a last place finish, I think you're more likely to see Heim leave office than Cora leave office.
Right.
I think that's probably part of the if anyone's been paying attention to the amount of press that the Red Sox front office has been doing since the town hall, it's a whole lot more. They're a whole lot more accessible because they're cognizant of the fact that they might take a hit on ticket sales this year, despite saying that their ticket sales are up this year. But yeah, I mean, like they're now in a place of, I don't want to say financial hurt, but like they are cognizant of, what's going to be hitting their pocketbook for the next year. And I think a Heim firing, it wouldn't be advised. I'm someone that was upset with Heim in the moment with Xander Bogaerts, but in the long run, I think a Heim Bloom firing is it's a knee-jerk reaction. It would feel good in the moment, but it's a knee-jerk reaction that wouldn't help the team. And I think even getting rid of Cora as a manager, he's too valuable to send to, because he's going to get scooped up by another team. Like,
Right.
that's a fact. He's going to have
Yeah.
a job in baseball. So I would rather him have a job in baseball with the Red Sox than a job in baseball with, I don't know, like Baltimore or Toronto.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I feel like that more of that pressure is, you know, just on some of these players that need to have a breakout season to show not only that they belong in the future of the Red Sox, that they're able to be productive major league players after maybe some down seasons or so. And I think as well that there's a lot to prove as well, and starting to get into some of these breakout candidates. One guy that I think has a lot to prove and really what he does this season could really, answer the question if he's a part of the Red Sox future, if they should extend him, if they should trade him, is Alex Verdugo. And I think, with what not only him coming over, as essentially the centerpiece and one of the only guys who looks like who could actually make an impact on this major league roster from the Mookie Betts trade. You could say Connor Wong, but, who knows what's really going to happen with him. But I think especially with the down year that we saw from him, more trying to hit balls out of the ballpark rather than get on base. Really hurt him. Obviously brought up the hurt toe throughout the season, and went into spring training, best shape of his life. But the big question mark is how is that really going to correlate to his production in the regular season?
Yeah, I mean, everyone's in the best shape of their life, so Red Sox are going to have a Hall of Fame year.
That's the hope.
But yeah, I mean, the Verdugo thing is really weird, and I feel somewhat bad for him because he's not a bad player, but he's not the player everyone was hoping for in the Mookie Betts thing. And in the moment, and for the next year after, every time he got a question of, can you fill Mookie Betts' role? And we would hear him say, well, I'm not Mookie Betts, I'm my own player.
Right.
And that's got to be frustrating as hell as a player because you understand your own limitations. And I would imagine you always want to exceed them if you're a professional athlete, but to maybe like exceed your own expectations of what you imagine for the season and then still have everyone in this market still continue to be like, well, it's a failed trade because X, Y, and Z are not making the All-Star game, which I think is a dumb barometer to just be like, well, we have 3 guys, they're not making the All-Star game. Mookie Betts has made the All-Star game every year. Legitimate arguments I have heard. And the All-Star games, like, it's fan voting, it's popularity. If Verdugo can come out and have a batting average that, helps his team, if he's able to have an OPS that, pushes his team from 5th place to 4th place, that's a success in my eyes. The tough thing is all season, though, I have been saying it is time to move on from Verdugo. And that's not because I don't want him in Boston. I think the Red Sox are now in this period of we are in a build for a hopefully soon to be World Series. You're not winning that this year.
Yeah.
That's if they make the playoffs, awesome, fun. But you're not going to want to be buying all in on this team this year. So why not try and move assets that, like I said, they're good. They're not bad, but that you can get a return for it where you might have a player to develop later. I mean, like if it's one thing to be prideful of that trade, if that's what Heimblum's doing and keeping Verdugo, it's another thing to see potential or maybe will potential. That's what I'm really curious of why he might still be here because we're starting to get backed up in the outfield. I mean, Kike's not going to be an issue there because he's going to be at shortstop, but you are starting to get a backlog of guys in the outfield who are par. They're not subpar. They're not bad. I'm hoping Yoshida is going to be one of my names on my list, but I'm hoping Yoshida lives up to the expectations. And, if he's a better player than Verdugo, why not move on from Verdugo? Because now you know what you can have.
And I mean, especially the money that they gave to Yoshida, the years as well. And I think with Alex, a lot of the stuff that we've heard from the value of the player, the contract that people are predicting that he could get around like $10 to $14 million, and you really got to like look in the mirror and look at the statistics and just like the straight value of it. Is he worth that amount of money? And I think this is the year for him to be able to show that he is. You know, we love the personality, we love the energy that he brings to the team. You know, he's one of the most lively guys. You know,
This is
on
a
in the
classic.
clubhouse.
If I could have 9 Alex Verdugos, I would, but I
Exactly.
can't. Yeah.
Yeah, but like at the same time, you got to get on base. You got to produce. You know, and you know the defense is also into question a little bit as well. And so you know, I think for him, you know, this is the time for you to truly show not only that you're in the best shape of your life right now, but also that you deserve to be part of the future of the Boston Red Sox.
It's all about being an asset. I mean,
Right.
if you can't be an asset here, then I don't know. You're just an ass.
Yeah.
I don't know what to tell you. But and you bring up a name that the WBC, a teammate of Alex Verdugo's, Jaron Duran.
I hope you are enjoying my conversation with Coop, but I just want to take a sec to tell you about LinkedIn. So these days, every new potential hire can feel like a high stakes wager for your small business. If you want to feel 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available, that's why you got to check out LinkedIn Jobs. They help you find the right people for your team faster and for free. Something that you can actually do is add your job and the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you are hiring. And they also have simple tools like screening questions. It makes it easy for you to focus on the candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you're going to interview and hire. And that's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires for leading competitors. So make sure to check out LinkedIn Jobs to not only get qualified candidates that you want to talk to, but also faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonmlb. That's linkedin.com/lockedonmlb to post your job for free. Terms and conditions may apply. Now let's get back into my conversation with Coop Leonard.
Who I want to come around on him. I still have the bad taste in my mouth from the whole losing the ball in the night sky ordeal.
Yep.
And also just overall production for the way he talked about that. I mean, like, that's my dumb idiot brain at work there. Just like focusing on that. But he can be a good player. It looks like he bulked up in the offseason, which I love. Andrew Benintendi also bulked up in the offseason one year, and we know how that went. But I'm hoping it's reverse effect. I'm hoping that Durant can come out and be a player that can be trusted in the outfield. I mean, he's becoming the defensive substitute for Team Mexico. That's, who knows, maybe tomorrow they're going to be in the WBC finals. It'd be fun to see Jaron Duran and Alex Verdugo in the finals, but I also kind of want them to just return to camp at this point and start working on, stuff that needs to be focused on for the season.
Right.
But like Jaron Duran, I think, falls into that same camp as Alex Verdugo, where that you have a decent player. He's much younger than Verdugo, and there's still a lot of time. But I shouldn't say much younger. I mean, all in their 20s. But yeah, it's a matter of hoping that things work out. And I think is that the narrative for this year? Just hoping things work out?
Yeah, I mean, I've anytime somebody's asked me about my thoughts on this Red Sox team this year is that there's a lot of what ifs.
Yep.
There's a lot of things that need to go right. In my mind, I feel like the rotation. You could take a pebble and throw it at a glass wall, and like if that pebble just hits the right spot, a few players get injured. The whole team just goes crashing down. But with Duran, we've been very harsh on Duran on this podcast just for how he acted last season, the immaturity he exuded, after that whole situation. And it's interesting for me as well because I've been a proponent of when I saw him in Worcester, completely different player.
Yep, I remember you telling me that.
Playing much looser, showed his personality, and this, people who listen to this podcast know this, I have a soft spot when people speak about their mental health struggles. Like, we all go through that type of stuff, and it was nice to hear him be mature about that aspect of it. But at the same time, you need to be a professional and you need to act like it. Outside of the off-field stuff, it was nice to see some positivity offensively for him. He also made some good plays in left field. I think that was a plus as well. But I think the real question is are you going to, send him down to Worcester to continue to build up his value for potentially another trade partner? Or are you just going to stick him on the bench and, just not really give him the up at bats that he really needs to become a better player? And so, it was nice to see him change his stance. But then there's also the whole equation as well. Like, Adam Duvall isn't a 100% center fielder. Kike is the starting shortstop. He's not center field, and you can't put Duran in center field. And there's just all these outfielders that like can't play center and aren't defensively good, especially at Fenway Park. So that just goes into the whole equation of why Jaron Duran like really needs to break out, whether it's in Worcester or whether it's in Boston.
Headline: Jaron Duran has to play good. Come on.
Yeah.
Who's saying no to that?
Yeah, I agree.
But that's the thing, is just like, to boil everything down seems like you're simplifying it so much, but it is just like the matter of fact of we're now dealing with a Red Sox team of you either sink or swim. And I think I'm hoping we see a Chaim Bloom this year, where at the deadline he just gets crazy, and crazy in a good way, where all these guys where we keep giving so much time and giving such a, like, every fan is like, why are we giving X, Y, and Z such a leash?
Right.
And I'm hoping it's because once we come to the deadline this year, we really see who is being moved, what assets are being brought in. I mean, like I said, like this season is not one where you're going to be buyers at the deadline. It's most likely you're going to be sellers. And if we can bring in some really nice prospects where they're going to be coming up within the year or within the next 2 years, I'm fine by that. That is, I've bought into that. I've bought into like that whole like brain capacity of, this is where we are. This is where we need to be. We're okay with that. We're in like a rebuilding, restructuring. I don't even want to say rebuilding, restructuring. I think restructuring is probably the best way to talk about that, because people love to say Boston's not, a small market team that can do a rebuild. I don't know. Look at our population size. We're not a big city. We're able to do rebuilding.
And I feel like as well, like, Chaim's had 3 years to evaluate. Like, I think that's a great point that you brought up with the trade deadline and like giving guys too much of a long leash to show what they really have. Dahlbeck is another guy. And, there was rumors of him being traded as well. And, I think, this is the time when there's been enough time to evaluate. You now need to make moves. You now need to make decisions on who's the true core of the next 3 to 4 years. And I think as well, you brought up the Xander thing. There's 2 holes in the middle infield now. Obviously Trevor Story come back at some point, but where are you really going to stick them? Second base or shortstop? And it's nice that one thing not a lot of people bring up. Christian Arroyo is somebody that I'm going to bring up as another breakout candidate. I'm got him off of waivers, and especially with how good of a player he's been since the team got him in 2020, I think you got to applaud Chaim for being able to see that talent. Obviously, he traded for him in the Longoria trade with San Francisco when he was with the Rays initially. Like I brought it up multiple times, he needs to get away from only getting Rays guys because he loves to do that. But especially with Arroyo,
what, you didn't love Michael Wacha?
Michael Wacha, Rich Hill, Tommy Pham, Jake Faria, whatever. Like all these guys are Rays guys.
We love the Rays.
He loves them. But with Arroyo, I think especially not only what he showed in the second half, hitting 329, one of the best players in the lineup in that second half when everything was so abysmal down the stretch last year, and especially with what we've seen of him so far in spring training, hitting 311, 2 homers, 8 RBIs. I'm feeling confident in Christian Arroyo's first full season, hopefully healthy season in a Red Sox uniform.
Yeah, I mean, this is like one of the dumbest sayings in the world, but you take away his injuries, he's a great ball player. But like, I think Arroyo legitimately has a case where if he can stay healthy, he's giving you 120 games at second base, and that's going to be solid play at second base. Last year, He had one of the best fielding percentages until he started, his bout with the IL last year.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm excited to see what he can do. The bat I want to see pick up. I know it's spring training. I know he's hitting well right now, but it's spring training, especially with the WBC going on. So, we have to be realistic about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, what do you do if Arroyo is lighting the world on fire? Kike's having himself a good year at shortstop, and the outfield doesn't have any woes. Like, what do you do come July or August when, Trevor Story is supposed to return? Like, do you mess up that flow? Do you like gradually increase him until someone inevitably messes up? And
in the words of Chaim Bloom, that's a good problem to have.
Exactly. Yeah. But these are the hypothetical worlds we live in.
I completely agree with you. And that's the other thing too is I feel like you also got to remember with Arroyo, even though I don't want, if he is lighting the world on fire, like keep it flowing. Don't put him back into the utility role. But I think with Story, you don't throw him right back in to being a full time player. Even though you're paying him a buttload of money, you want to make sure that he's going to stay healthy not only for the rest of 2022 if he does play, or excuse me, 2023 and 2024. You want to make sure that that arm is as good as possible, and make sure that if you do depend on him being that shortstop, that you're able to give him enough time to be able to work that up, because we know obviously the concerns with Story being able to have a good enough arm to sustainably be an everyday shortstop. And I feel like with Arroyo, like, you got to give him the shot. He really hasn't truly had the shot. And people who love to crap on the injuries, if COVID wasn't even a thing, Christian Arroyo would have played over 100 games like the last 3 years. He's if you look at his injury history, like 6 of the times he's been out, it's because of COVID. It's like literally crazy. And if he works out, he doesn't. I feel like this is really a time for him to not only show the Red Sox, but the rest of the major league teams, is he an everyday player or is he just a bench utility player?
Yeah, it's interesting because I feel like the Red Sox always churn out these guys. I mean, you have Steve Pearce, you have Mitch Moreland. Well, Mitch Moreland was less of
Michael
like a
Chavis.
utility guy. Yeah, Michael Chavis, but Brock Holt.
Yeah.
But it's funny we always have these utility guys come through there where, they're bouncing around from team to team. They get picked up by the Red Sox and they kind of find their home.
Mm-hmm.
And, whether they end up staying here or not, they typically find themselves like a nice cash cow out of it. And
True.
hopefully that's something that can happen with Arroyo, and that's something that can keep him here until we inevitably see, Meyer come up. Who knows? And
Mm-hmm.
that's the other thing that scares me is when you sent me the topic today of Breakout, I wasn't sure whether we would be doing prospects or not. But I kind of got the feeling. I'm glad I got it because it's who's going to break out in 2023, correct?
Yep. Yes. I hope you are enjoying my conversation with Coop Leonard, but I just want to take a second to talk to you about Built Bar. So the Built March Madness bracket is here, and we know that you have a favorite bar or puff, and now's your time to make it count. So go to builtmarchmadness.com to vote for your favorites. For me, I'm voting for Marshmallow Puffs. It's one of the best ones that they have. I'm a big fan of marshmallows. I mean, one thing that honestly relaxes me anytime I go camping, just a nice fire, marshmallows with, obviously the nice fire s'mores. So it kind of reminds me a little bit of that. They also do have a s'mores as well, which is delicious. But one thing that, I love about Built Bar is that it's 100% real chocolate, and it's not only good for you, but it also tastes good. It honestly tastes like a candy bar. And when you vote for your favorite bar or puff, you will be entered into a drawing where 50 lucky Locked On listeners will get a free box of Built. Not only that, but one Locked On fan will actually win a 12-month subscription to Built to have Built's best bars or puffs delivered monthly straight to your door. You got to check out Built. It's one of the best protein bars out there. Seriously, it's unbelievable. It tastes so good. Like I said, a candy bar. And the one thing that I love about Built bars is that it's low sugar, 100% real chocolate, like I said, with high protein. So run to builtmarchmadness.com right now to vote for your favorite bar or puff, and also pick up a box while you're there. You can vote every day in March, so hop on in and support your pick. Now let's get back into my conversation with Coop Leonard.
And that's tough for this team
I
because,
agree. Well,
like we
because I
said,
was looking through the roster, and like I said, there's the word pressure. Like, there's a lot of like pressure on guys to like break out. Like, I was looking through the
yeah.
roster, like I could freaking pick like 15 of these guys.
And it's not even the sense of guys, coming up for their first time and having their
Mhm.
cup of coffee and really proving themselves. It's guys like Chris Sale, who you haven't seen in years.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, well, I guess this is a restart for him. Is he going
Mhm.
to break out?
Yeah.
It really is just like an entire team of question marks. I think the only guy that you can actually be sure of is Devers at this point.
Mm. Yep.
And even him, you're kind of like, well, does he live up to his contract and break out? So maybe he does have an MVP season. Who knows? He could break out. But yeah, one of the guys that I'm really, like I said, on this weird fence of can he break out is Alfaro.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a sense where he might not even have the opportunity to break out because he just doesn't make the contract. Tapia is in that same situation. We texted you'd mentioned him, and I think he's going to come up later. But Alfaro, so far, spring training has shown that he can be a great catcher. He's done a decent job controlling games behind the dish, which I really care about for a catcher. But he's shown off a little bit of that power along with that flowing hair.
Mhm.
That gets me excited because there's nothing more fun than a catcher that you can trust up at the plate to, even if it's, he's not the best contact hitter, he's putting something in the outfield for you to move guys once you're collecting bases at the bottom of the order. So maybe he can be that guy. Maybe he can find a 40-man roster spot and, kick around at AAA until he does come up, or maybe he even is on the opening day roster. But Alfaro is someone that I do want to see on this lineup. And he's an example of that Heim Bloom. You gave him a little bit of money. You gave him a good amount of money for who he is, but he's also not the worst thing in the world to cut loose
Right.
financially.
And, for Tapia as well as Alfaro, the Sox got 4 days to figure out what they're going to do with them. So like on March 25th with both of those guys, they don't add them to the 40-man roster, then they have the ability to look for other major league opportunities with any team in the league. And so that is one thing that you don't have a lot of time to make this decision anymore. You've now given Alfaro, now that he's back from the WBC. Now this is really your time to evaluate. Now with Wong, not really being in the equation over the last 2 weeks or so with the hamstring strain, like that gave Alfaro like a really clear open road to like really show why he deserves to be on this opening day roster. Tapia as well, but I think one thing with him, and anytime the name Alfaro comes up, on this podcast or even on Twitter or whatever, the vibes aspect always is molded with it. And I'm just going to take that, crumple it up, and throw it in the trash. Like, what are you going to do with me for me on the field? Like, that's really all that matters in terms of wins. Yes, I love the clubhouse aspect. That's great. Like the flowing hair, talked about it enough. But I've loved what he's shown on the field. How he's worked with Jason Varitek at trying to improve as a defensive catcher. What he's not only been able to show you contact wise, power wise. The one thing coming into the season, you saw the numbers where he struck out more than he got on base. That hasn't been the case throughout spring training. Yes, it's spring training, but that's the only sample size that we've seen from him in a Red Sox uniform. So that's how you can really base it off of. And I think the other thing too is Wong has options. And so I really think it's a no-brainer with him and Tapia that you just add him to the 40-man roster. But then there's the whole, added to the equation. We know what has happened with the 40-man roster over the offseason. Are you finally going to drop a guy like Caleb Ort? Like, are you finally going to make some of these tough decisions? Like Ryan Brazier doesn't seem to like really be giving you anywhere close to what you
ride
thought.
Ride that train. I will be the conductor on that train to get Brazier out of town. Me and Bradfo, we have butted heads over this so much.
Wait, on this podcast, like Lauren and I have talked so much crap about Brazier. It's nothing
Everyone
against the person.
does.
It's nothing against the person. It's only against that you are not a major league pitcher, and I don't know why we're acting like you are. And it's just, you just got to make some of these decisions, because you can also bring up the Mondesi, the Rodriguez aspect of them being on the IL. Yes, but you need to make some of these decisions on the 40-man roster. So it's not so much of like, holy crap, we have to trade Matt Barnes so then we can get a 40-man roster spot. Oh, geez, we got to trade Josh Taylor. So then like there's all these no more question marks. But like the answer's right in front of you.
So to paint a picture of like, because I feel like everyone is against Brazier. To play devil's advocate here, because Bradfo can't. Bradfo loves to point out that I believe it was the month of September into the end of the season. He had the best. I don't know if it was FIP or ERA.
Yeah, he replied on my tweet with all these freaking with all these things, and I replied to his tweet with his month by month ERA. And it's just like, I love you, Rob. I respect you as hell, but like, you're wrong.
So that's the thing is Rob is much more of like the most near sample size.
Yeah.
So if we can take the last month of baseball, that is what Rob sees as the projection for that player's future, or potential projection, I should say. Like, it's not definitive, which he's not wrong. I mean, like, if you want to look at the most recent stats, that's a fair thing to do.
Right.
But when you look at the greater sample size and you account for the fact that there's now a goddamn off season in between when Ryan Brazier was somewhat cooking, And when he's actually going to be playing actual games,
I mean,
yeah, that's an issue because like
what'd you see today? Like, I mean, he showed you right there. Like, nothing's changed.
no, and yeah, it's awesome he had that one solid trend, but you're hoping that he can keep that trend through an off season.
Yeah,
Like that just makes zero sense to me. It's more likely that he reverts to who he was than continues this amazing trend of being the third best guy like in a bullpen that can pitch to left-handed hitters. Awesome stat to have, but he's just not cutting the slack. Like he
no,
shouldn't be on the 40 man. Give
no.
it to Alfaro.
Yeah, I agree, and I think the other aspect of the whole bullpen equation is like give guys an opportunity like Wyatt Mills, Zach Kelly to truly show what they have. You know what I mean? Like we know who Brazier is. Nick Pivetta is in this same equation. We know who he is. We know like what he's going to give you. He's like there's just no doubt about it. Like give guys an opportunity like they kind of did at the September call-ups, but it's only 1 month. Like you're not really going to know if this guy's going to be a part of the future. And so, I think it's a super easy answer for Alfaro, and I think he's shown you what you need to know. And I think with Connor Wong, yes, he was good in Worcester last year. Didn't really give you too much in the majors. Allow him to develop a little bit more. I think the other thing with Wong too. I bring this up anytime his name comes up. He also has the ability to play second base and third base. And Chad Tracy, like down in Worcester, said that they were going to try that a little bit. Did that actually end up panning out? No, because the team called him right up because there was injuries and everything like that. So maybe trying that a little bit, like add to his versatility. And the other thing with Alfaro too, he can play first base. He can also play DH. So he's not only a catcher. And so I think that also adds to the equation as well for Alfaro. But I'm excited to see, what he's able to do. And then, another guy who, has been a massive leader in the clubhouse thus far, ever since Xander left, ever since the spring training started, is Kike Hernandez. And, a lot of people forget, especially with all the great publicity that he's had over the last year or so, sort of being semi, the face of the Red Sox, even at the Winter Classic, like he was the only guy that was there. And,
Which is
it doesn't,
so bizarre. It is
and it
so
doesn't
bizarre to
matter.
see Kike. But
Yeah.
I like that. Like he is a
No,
good
yeah.
face of this team.
I agree. I was just gonna say it doesn't matter if he only has a 1 year contract. Like he's just embracing it, and I love to see it. But people forget, like he was awful last year in the small sample size that he was there. He missed 60 games. He had that hip flexor, like the bowl of blood thing, which is like freaking disgusting to even think about. But like the stats, I mean, before the injury, 51 games, a 209 at batting average. After the injury, 42 games, 239. Like that just ain't gonna cut it. And especially now with I love the cocky talk. I love it. Like, let's see, like talk to me in October about if I'm a shortstop or not. That's what he said on the Chris Rose rotation. I love it. But we can talk all about like you being a great shortstop, you setting the vibes in the clubhouse. But like if you can get anywhere close to the 250 batting average, the 20 home runs, anywhere close to that you had in 2021, I'd love it.
Yeah. It's weird. Like that is the only way to sum up this whole season that we're looking ahead to is it's weird. Just like Devers is technically the most senior guy, or Chris Sale technically I think is the most
Yeah.
senior player on this team,
Yeah.
but you haven't seen him for the last 3 years. Devers then would be second in command, and he's a literal child. As much as I love him, and also doesn't primarily speak English.
He loves his ice cream though.
Oh, God bless. There was a picture of him today where he was just all smiles in the dugout. Yeah. Like he's living the best life, and I'm happy he does, because if I can't, he should.
Yeah, I agree.
But the fact that like we've now defaulted to Kike Hernandez as being our captain on paper, that's wild. But anyone who is tuning in for, I don't know, like a third of all games this like last year, and then like any spring training games this year, and is paying attention, like it's a no-brainer that Kike is, the heart of the team. Like you understand how he is as a player from when he was as a Dodger. And now with Justin Turner, who is a vet, coming in, knowing him, having a great relationship with him, and being able to coach him up to be like, hey, this is how we do things at Fenway Park. This is how we do things as a Red Sox. Now take it and go, because I think Justin Turner is going to end up being really the guy at the end of the season that it will be the heartbeat of that clubhouse.
I hope you did enjoy my conversation with Coop Leonard, and you're also excited for part two because we not only talk about our last three breakout candidates, but we also go into other different players that are potential breakout candidates and look more into your Twitter responses. If you want to be a part of those Twitter responses in the future, make sure to follow us over on Twitter. It's LO_Red Sox. Also follow myself. It's at Jake Iggy, and also my co-host Lauren. It's la 3 laws, Lauren with 4 R's. But like I said, make sure to check in tomorrow for part two of our conversation. It's a great conversation, gets you excited about the season, as well as informed if you want to learn more about these different players. But we greatly appreciate everybody tuning into this episode. And thank you so much for making Locked On Red Sox your first listen of every single day. Now make your second listen and check out Locked On Fantasy Baseball. Win your league by listening to Matt and Dom every day as they bring you the best fantasy draft strategies. Find Locked On Fantasy Baseball wherever you get your podcasts and over on YouTube. But we want to thank you so much for tuning in. Hope that you have a great rest of your day. And we'll end it how we always end it. Keep the faith and let's go Sox. Peace.